This is a SportsE Media production, part of Quiet Loud Studios, the podcast network where reflection meets amplification.
Thank you to everybody for tuning in to episode 3 here with a good brother of mine, Dan Blackburn. Such an inspiration, a true leader, a true man, a true masculine man that leads from the front, serves himself so that he can better serve those that he comes in contact with. A true light in this world. And as we all know, we need that light now more than ever. So again, as I said, thank you so much for tuning into episode 3 here of the Raw, Authentic, and Vulnerable podcast. As always, thank you to everybody at SportsEpreneur for creating this platform for me to continue coming out here, sharing not only my story, but allowing other people to come on, share their story, to continue the normalcy around the fact that we all struggle. We all have, we all are, and we all will. Life is a battle. So make sure that you are tending and equipping your spiritual gym. Yes, we need to be in that physical gym, but we also need to be inside the spiritual gym so that we can set ourselves free. What's done is done. Can you set your own self free? Nonetheless, we're going to tune in here now to episode 3 of the Raw, Authentic, and Vulnerable podcast. Guesting on the show today, as I said, is a good brother of mine, Dan Blackburn. We've known each other now for several years and just truly grateful and honored that he's willing to come on and talk about whatever we choose to talk about. But other than that, Dan, why don't you go ahead and take over and introduce everybody to your greatness?
Hey, buddy. Thanks, man. I appreciate the invite and grateful to be here. Yeah, and I love that name, the Rav. My fiance, Steph, said, what are you guys going to talk about? I said, we're going to talk about our feelings and we're going to talk about the truth. And she was like, okay, that's a cool conversation. So thanks, Jake. My name is Dan Blackburn. I founded National Training Centers. It's formerly known as NTC Hockey here in the hockey ecosystem 26 years ago. And that was, 26 years. I mean, just that in itself, getting through a business 1 year was a big feat. A decade, 2.5 decades plus. And for me, the start of the business was the end of the pain and the difficulty, the shame, the guilt that I carried with me for a long time. So it's literally like a jumping off period. So when I look at NTC hockey now, it's like, wow, like I remember where I was, where I had to get to emotionally, mentally to start, just to have the idea, just to have the courage to follow, to go another step. And God created so many venues, so many entry points. He kept like nudging me and I resist and nudge me and resist. And eventually I took the baton and ran with it. And so that's a huge accomplishment of mine. I have 2 amazing daughters. Taylor is 22, and then my bonus daughter is 25. Both of them are such incredible. They're not only incredible people, but they're incredible teachers to me. And I'm walking around with the dad t-shirt on and thinking like, hey, look, I'm leading the charge and I'm doing all the teaching, which I do a lot of that. But I'm when I'm aware and open and authentic, I'm so blessed to how much I'm able to learn from them, how different I am than my dad, even how different I am than my mom. And we'll dig into my story a bit. My dad was an alcoholic and fought in the war and had mental health issues. Back in the 80s, you didn't talk about your mental health issues. I mean, Christ, we don't talk about it enough now. But he was just buried in his addiction to hide and to mask all of his guilt and shame. And my mom was trying to, keep all the pieces together, right? She's trying to hold the sand as it's dripping through her fingers. And so I parent differently than them. And then my partner, Stephanie, my fiance, we've been together for 11 and a half years. Yeah, light of my life. And I said this the other day on my Instagram, the hardest I've worked in my life is on myself is through my intimate relationship with Stephanie. Because the more I want from her and the more I want the relationship to grow, it just continually offers me doorways of deeper intimacy, which means ripping things open and putting stuff on the table and memories and thoughts and judgment and shame, things that I had forgotten about, and a lot of stuff I locked away and I wouldn't think about it myself, let alone share that. Sometimes I talk with her and I say stuff and I'm like, holy cow, like I thought that was locked away forever. And this is 10, 11 years into our relationship, but I feel so safe with her, and my vulnerability creates or more safety in her. And so it's literally like this beautiful, pitch and catch game. And yeah, so my recovery as a child of an alcoholic family and all my pain and all the things I went through in my life, it still goes on this day. And I'm literally, I was reading, books right now before we got online. I make it a practice every day to continue to work on my recovery. And it's enriching everything in my life. And so, yeah, I'm the founder of NTC Hockey, super proud of it, super successful. I can tell you all the stories. I've lifted every major hockey trophy there is above my head because I helped other players win them. NTC Hockey is rooted in service. It's what it's about. You came 1 year as a head coach to one of our programs. You brought so much life into that room, into those players. They still talk about it now. I mean, my daughter still talks about a lot of what you said from the stage. And so I'm super proud of that. And I'm so proud of my growth and what I've been able to achieve. My growth on me, my connection to God. And then when I'm in a good place in those areas, everything else still has rocky roads at times, but everything else flows so seamlessly. So yeah, so that's it in a nutshell.
Boom. Well, thank you so much, brother, for sharing all that you did. I mean, there's so many areas, so many ways, pathways that we could go just based on everything you said there. But the one place I want to go to, because I know that I've got the green light to talk about anything that comes up. And knowing what I know now after myself going through a masculinity program, I went through this 2 years ago. It was a 2.5 month long program with 25 other men from around the world, facilitated by a man based in the United Kingdom in London. And it was the most powerful work that I've ever done on myself, healing myself from the wounds, from the relationships that I have with my parents. And if I'm able to go in and heal those things, the man I get to be, the husband, the boyfriend, the fiance, the father, everything has drastically shifted. So earlier when you were speaking, you spoke about how she provides safety for you and how your vulnerability in turn creates safety for her. So my question is, how important for the strength and longevity of a relationship is exactly that safety, the emotional safety, the physical safety, the spiritual safety? So was it always that way for your guys? Can maybe you talk about how it was in the beginning, what steps had to be taken in order to create that safety in the relationship? And then ultimately any type of practices or things that you guys do at an emotional level together to continue the shaping, the forging of your guys' incredible relationship.
Yeah. I mean, we're going down a deep pathway here. So I love it. I mean, I think out of the gate, my experience of relationships, both intimate in a connection with a partner and then intimate, with friends and people that I spend a lot of time with, the deeper, the more intimate the relationship, the more it's going to expose and pick at and show me my triggers, my points of pain, the things that I wanted to hide, right? I mean, intimacy is into me, you see. And so if I want more in a relationship, then I have to bring more. And so as it relates to safety, I mean, for me as a man, was holding a space for Stephanie so she could show up fully. And that was hard as hell because, all of my judgments would come up. If I did something that it triggered her and then she had a reaction, I could and early on in the relationship, I would make it all about me. My story was like, oh, I screwed up. Like it's my fault. And she was just expressing herself. She's just like, I'm mad or I'm whatever. And I don't need to get all up in there and make it be my thing. But I did early on. And I did that in all my previous relationships too. The difference in this one is I'm so deep in recovery and Steph does her work also that we're able to eventually kind of get our head above water and see it for what it is. So to me, the safety out of the gate was not taking things personally and being able to just hold the space for Steph to express whatever she was feeling and just hold that space for her and be empathetic and stay connected. That's the other thing. Like I grew up and most of us grew up when there was conflict, it was like, boom, we're gone. Like I'm out of the room or I'm not, my brother, we're having a fist fight. Like we're purposely disconnecting physically and emotionally. And so like, how's that working for your intimate relationship? Right. So it's being able to stay in it. And I can only speak for how I show up, and from what I feel I have the ability to do is just standing in the storm that she's going through and holding a space for her to be herself. Now, that being said, boundaries are a big thing too, right? Like I always say, like for me, a boundary is, can't hurt other people, can't hurt yourself, and can't damage things, people, places around you. And so, if someone's being abusive to me in my life at any level, well, I'm not going to hold a space for them because my safety is priority one. So take care of me. So let's just assume that's, for Steph and I, we that's never been a case. So I've always felt safe. It was just more like, do I have the emotional strength to stay in the difficulty, to stay in the tension, the storm that Steph is bringing to the table?
So would you say then that in the midst of her chaotic ocean, her storm, you have to then, as the man, act as the lighthouse? Because if you reflect on a lighthouse during a storm, what is it doing the entire length of the storm? It is being no different. It is just standing tall, standing in the face, even though the waves are smacking against the lighthouse consistently.
True, true, true femininity. This has been my experience. True femininity wants the masculine to lead, and true masculinity is leading the feminine. And so, to your point, when there's a storm, and it's going to happen, how firm is that lighthouse? How strong, how rooted is that man in the storm? Because what I've experienced is that when Steph knows and feels my strength, her storm subsides almost instantly. Because much like me, I'm being triggered by my past. In all probability, the root of Steph's storm is rooted in her past. And so it's not even about me, right? It's about the neighbor or the sister or the mom or the dad that happened when she was 3 and 7 and 9. And so if I'm able to stay in the storm and see past all of that and just be there, eventually Steph is going to feel the strength and be like, oh yeah, I don't have to be all like caught up in the feelings, because when I was a little kid, that's where the feelings went. So part of my defense was like this protection, right? You can't get me. I'm locked and loaded. Well, once she sees that that's not required anymore, it's like the softness lands. And that's where her and I are able to meet in a place that is, I can hear her, I can see her, I can experience her feelings. And we're just literally able to find that level of connection. To me, that's where intimacy happens. It's on the other side of the storm and the other side of the difficulty or the depth of the thing or things that I don't want to talk about or didn't want to bring to the table.
That's man, that's so powerful, because again, acting as that lighthouse, that's how a man leads a woman back into her feminine essence, right? Because women don't want to be harsh and hard. Of course, they too have their boundaries, but ultimately an awakened woman is one that is in that safe container for her to soften back into who she is at the deepest level. And of course, men and women both have masculine and feminine. But I think in society today, we see overly feminine men and overly masculine women. So what does it look like for you then? Because I know it's not as simple as just simply standing there, standing tall as she is expressing her emotions. Is there a technique? Is there something you do so that you can stay rooted and stay grounded in the face of her storm?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing now is presence. I mean, again, Steph, and I think, again, just from the work that I do, it applies to most women in the true femininity. They want presence. And that, that can be hard, right? The distractions of phones and devices and 101 things going on. And so that's number one is my presence. And number two, Steph and I have developed a dialogue where I'll ask her, like, are you looking to share? Or are you looking for solutions? And because as a guy, you and I are on a road trip and we're lost, dude, we're in solution mode. Like, we're like, let's get the hell out of here. A woman is like, okay, I want to talk about my feelings about how we got lost. And then what my feelings about, like, okay, so let's, as long as I'm not being chased by a grizzly bear, okay, let's talk about that, right? Let's go there. And then once you feel safe that you've been able to express your, let's move on. So that's a big part for Steph and I, as I check in. Are you sharing, or do you want feedback and support? And so in most times in the storm, it is to share. And then I can check in. And if this is not a good time for me, then I can say to Steph, well, right now is not a good time. And I so want to hear you. I'm just going to wrap this up, or I'm going to wait for Taylor to get out of the car, or I want to get home and do this in person, or I've got some stuff going on right now and I just can't be there for you. So can we circle back in a half an hour, or tonight when I get home, or tomorrow morning? Can you go to sleep with this energy and get a good night's sleep? Because if you can, it would be helpful for me to connect in the morning. And if you can't, then okay, then maybe let's find a way. And then the other part for me is also having other support mechanisms. Oh, look at that. See that? Having other support mechanisms in my life so that Steph isn't my only go-to. Because sometimes she's not available. And it's important that I honor her. And I pick up the phone. I have a sponsor. I have other men that I lean on that I can go deep with and share what I need to share to at least get the heaviness off, so that maybe I can sleep or do whatever. So those are some, we'll call them acts of engagement that Steph and I have developed. And we've talked about these, and we've gone back and forth, and we forget, and I'm like, whatever. And then she's like, Dan, I said 3 minutes ago that this is not a good time. And I'm like, oh, snap. I forgot. Old habits, right? I just got to go. And so when I honor myself with these, and Steph is honoring herself, yeah, we're literally like two, to take your analogy of a lighthouse, we're literally like two ships just cruising in the harbor and rock solid with each other, because we're rock solid with ourselves.
Man, that's again, that's so powerful. I hope there's people out there, men out there listening to this, that are in relationship, because I think there's so much conflict in relationship that is just so unnecessary. And the more grounded and rooted the man is in himself, that's how we can be that lighthouse. But if we aren't doing things to serve ourselves, to heal from past experiences, whether that's, again, friendship, relationship, parental, brother, sister, whatever, we're then so tense that when her emotions are expressed, the energy behind the emotion hits us, hits our energetic field, our stuff naturally is going to come up. And then it's what we do then in that moment. Do we deny her reality, which doesn't create that safe space, that security, safety, and stability that the feminine needs, right? And we have to shut them down in an attempt to co-regulate ourselves. So I like what you said earlier about how she's going to pick up on it. If you're not giving her your presence energetically, whether women are aware of it or not, they will always pick up on it, right? And that right there is where so many relationships end, is because we have lost the connection with the feminine emotionally, which that's what they need first. A truly awakened feminine woman is going to want you emotionally, is going to want your presence first, and then all of the physical intimacy will reflect that. But again, if you're not able to give her your presence, she's going to pick up on it, which is going to lead to the energetic and emotional disconnect, which will then in turn lead to the physical disconnect. And then that relationship's over.
100%. Absolutely. And for me, that's been work, like Dan working on Dan, right? It's me going deep on myself and consistently, like, another layer, and looking for those pieces, those clues. See, because I grew up with a mom who, like I said, was like struggling to keep it together, and like how she did it, how she raised two boys, working part-time, owned a townhouse in a safe neighborhood at a great high school. Our Christmas tree, we always had the gift. Like, I don't know how she did it. And there wasn't a lot of room for my emotions, my feelings to come to the table, literally or figuratively. And maybe justifiably through my mom's lens, because like there was no time. And that sucked for me as a kid, as a young boy, because my dad wasn't there. My mom wasn't always available. And so what do I do with my feelings? What do I do? Okay, well, I'll just lock them down. I'll just push them in, or I'll judge myself. You're being so selfish, Dan. Like, how could you? What do you mean you got feelings and you're not happy in this moment? Do you know, the old story of like, do you know how bad kids in Africa have it? What do you mean you don't like your chicken? Well, I'm allowed not to like the chicken. It doesn't make me a bad person. Like, can you just acknowledge me that I'm not enjoying this meal or that I'm having a hard time or biology's not my favorite course? I know I still got to go every day and sit in the damn classroom, but can you just jump in my boat with me and be like, I know that that sucks. And I hear it, Dan. Let's talk about that. Like, that's it. There was no space for that in my life growing up. So the patterning, the lessons, the thought process I connected to that was keep it down, no good, judge it, right? Shame, like guilt, like how could you? How dare you? And so that was the cloak I walked around with. And so having a partner who's like, yo, dude, like I want to hear more. I want to hear more. I want to hear more. It's, I feel like I'm like that little scary cat sometimes, who's kind of like coming out and checking like, oh, is it really, I know you invited me into this room, but is it really safe? And so that's the safety that I've continued to learn about Steph, is that she's willing to always stand there with me and be, and just be that safe place for me to share whatever it is I need to share.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so powerful to hear about the relationship that you guys have, because it sounds like you guys very consciously are navigating through conflict. And that to me is the true sign of strength in a relationship, is how well we can navigate conflict together. But as you stated earlier, it has not always been this way. The relationship that you have currently, obviously, it's taken a lot of individual work, a lot of work within the relationship, a lot of work and understanding women more, understanding Steph more. But prior to this relationship, how would what you just shared in regards to not having that space as a child, how did that show up in your previous relationships, and what impact did it have ultimately on those relationships?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the relationships were fun and enjoyable early on, and they became dysfunctional very quickly. And I wouldn't express my feelings of what I was experiencing. And so I would stay and in unhealthy environments. And then my codependency would kick in. So then I was trying to micromanage everybody and try and like do the thing and make them happy. And if I do that, then this. And so behind the scenes, conspiring with myself. Well, when I want, like, the old guy say like, oh, my wife wants me to be a mind reader, and my experience is when I was trying to be a mind reader, that's when I was self-destructing and the relationship was eroding before my eyes. And so that's how I live. I put myself probably not even on the list of priorities. And I was this codependent. I call it the flag and the flagpole, right? I teach our athletes, the flagpole is rooted. It's going nowhere. It'll weather, depends how far we went down the conversation of the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center. But even in amongst of all of that debris, that flagpole stood. And so, or you can be the flag, and the flags deteriorate. They break down, they blow off. Someone has to manually move them. And so I was the flag in the relationship. I was always trying to meet what I thought were some sort of pseudo needs of my partner, of the relationship, to try and, do what they needed to make them happy, which then I was usually wrong. So I wasn't caring for me. I wasn't really caring for them. I wasn't listening. I wasn't present. And then it would be infuriating for the other person, because then they would just get tired of me just trying to like stop trying to feed me my food. You eat your own food, and like let me eat my own food. Like, you know what I mean? And we'd both be happy at the same table. And so yeah, I was like, I felt I had to be in everything, controlling, checking stuff out. Why did you do that? Like, hey, you're 27 minutes late. Like, does that mean, and then my head would like go down dark places. Oh, if you're late, it must mean this. You're talking to that guy, Bob, you met at the gym. Yeah. It was just toxic, 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 all circulating inside of me. And the more of that there was, the more I would ratchet up the codependency and try and fix them and pay no attention to myself.
Yeah, what a difference between the Dan of now and his current relationship and the Dan
Bro,
of the old. Like,
yeah,
it
it's
sounds
not even the
like
same guy.
just there was no ground for you then, right? Because you didn't have that emotional space as a child to express yourself, which then led you to find a relationship that just matched you. and your lack of inner identity with yourself. And so, again, you have no base, there's no roots. It's just you standing. When the wind comes, when the storm comes, it's going to push you. I've been pushed by wind before because I wasn't rooted, I wasn't grounded in the ground. But again, to hear where you're at now, I mean, what a drastic shift, that I know it's not only impacting the relationship you have with Steph, but the relationship you have in fatherhood as well, and in friendships. And I've found through the work that I've done on myself that a lot of our attachment, because I know the different styles of attachment are very talked about currently, and how we attach in a intimate relationship is identical to how we attach in a friendship. And I recognized that in my own life, and I had to call a buddy of mine and apologize to him. Brother, I'm sorry. I've recognized how I am attaching to you. I'm so anxious. And I never thought about that. So it's again so powerful.
Yeah, and you hit something on there, because I was going to touch on it, was the impact. So my biological daughter's Taylor, and Steph's biological daughter's Allie, and they're both our respective bonus daughters. They get along famously like their sisters, and it's incredible. The love, the openness and reception that Allie had for me early on. Yeah, like what a gift. I say it's one thing to have a daughter by birth. It's a whole other love style to be chosen as a dad by a 14-year-old girl who didn't have a dad, or whose dad isn't in the picture. And she calls me dad. And yeah, I still remember the day when Taylor's in the back seat. And she's like, Allie, when are you going to call him dad? And how amazing it was that Taylor was like open to sharing her dad. Right. And so totally blessed from that. And you're right. The stronger, the more connected, the more intimate Steph and I are, and the deeper our connection is, the deeper our connections are with the girls, how they are with us. And I see their connection with themselves is so much stronger. And I say to parents all the time, they ask me, like, how can I help my son or daughter be more confident? And if I'm on stage, I ask them, like, do you really want to know the answer? And, because they think it's going to be some anecdotal, 3-step exercise you do every morning before you eat your waffles and bacon. And then if they say yes, my next question is, are you married? Or do you have a partner? And if they say yes, then I say, then your job is to make that relationship the absolute best it can possibly be. Whether you're together or not, co-parenting, make that a world-class relationship. And that starts with you doing work on you. So the byproduct of all of that will be kids that will feel like they can build their own rocket and fly to the moon. They won't need a 3-step strategy, because that 3-step strategy, if the underpinning is eroded and rotten, the 3-step strategy, I mean, you know this from the work you do, the 3 steps, like I think I can, but meanwhile inside it's like an absolute chaotic storm. Good luck. The moment one little thing triggers, all of my mindset game is finished. And so build the bedrock, build the footing, and the confidence, the self-worth, the self-value will absolutely explode and flourish from your kids.
What a lesson there for parents. It's one that I wish I had before having kids, so that I could have started this parenting journey before I was even a parent. And now, on the topic of being a parent, I love that you challenge people when you're up on the stage there, because I think that's ultimately what people need, not always necessarily what they want. But earlier you had mentioned how your daughters are like your biggest teachers. Can you dive into that? What exactly do you mean by that? What are they teaching you? What is being revealed, and how do you go about managing yourself when those challenges arise?
Yeah, well, I see the part of me. So Taylor's 22, Allie's 25, and I've been with Steph and Allie for 11 and a half years. So when Allie was, 14 and Taylor was, just turned 12, I get to see my version of Dan as a 12 and a 14-year-old, and then 16, and then 18 and 22, and now 25 on Allie's side. So I'm able to see myself in those moments. So when I'm feeling triggered, or when I want her to do something a certain way, I'm able to see, wow, I remember being that way. And what did I need? Because when I think of me as a 16-year-old, what did I need? And then I'm like, oh, shoot, that's what I needed. And then as an adult, I can be like, oh, dude, like I can give that to myself now. It literally closes a gap, an emotional gap that was holding me back. And it's like me watching Ali do her thing. Sometimes it's a trigger, and I'm like, man, I wish you wouldn't do that. But then I'm like, why am I affected by it? Because if she did something that I had no connection to, I'd either laugh about it or just roll my eyes. But when it's something that gets me, I'm like, whoa, that's just like me. And so now I'm able to think about, work on, maybe bring that trauma to my sponsor, work on it so that I can, like I said, I can heal that gap. I can pave that part of the road that had a huge pothole in it so that it no longer affects me. So that now I'm able to go to the next thing, whatever it's going to be. And so that's first and foremost. And the other thing too is watching the two of them play, even as, young women, like in play mode. I remember one time I was stressed about something. Taylor was probably 11 or 12 and it was Christmas. I picked her up at school and her mom and I had split up and it was my weekend with her. And we were going to a family function and I got her in the truck and we're driving and it's her last day of school. And she's like, and she looked at me and she's like, when are you going to get festive? Right. And I'm like, wow, like it's that obvious, eh? Because inside I was like, I was not good. And so I get that constant reminder too of like, okay, dude, I get that the thing you're going through is the thing. I get it. And so either let me pick up the phone and go somewhere and deal with it if it's that pressing, or I can turn that volume down on that thing and let me get connected to over here, because that's what Taylor and Ali are incredibly good at, is when they're together, they're so engaged and connected and they're like in play, family, making memory time. And I realized that, yeah, like I need that to be able to go back and deal with the thing. If I want to deal with the thing, I need that to be able to go back to the thing with more strength and vim and vigor to be able to stand into it, because I've just filled myself up with all this joy.
So would you say then that Ali and Taylor are in play mode the more present that they are?
Yes, 100%.
Us as adults, even though we're physically grown, I know for myself, and a lot of my work is unlearning so much, relearning so that I can be more childlike and be more present. And I think that having kids has afforded me that opportunity to see how present they are every single day. I think they're not present when in reality it's me, so I'm trying to free myself to get more back to that present moment, to be more curious, to be more imaginative in life, and that's exactly what kids are. So what a conundrum.
Yeah. I have this expression is if I spot it, I got it. Right. And so if I spot something in the girls, I mean, this applies to every relationship in my life, but certainly is talking to the girls specifically as a dad. When I spot something in their behavior and I feel it, it affects me, then it's about me. It's not even about them. And it's like, what an amazing gift, right? Like I used to rail against that when I was a teenager and a young adult, man. I used to rail against that. Like if you did or said something that rubbed me the wrong way, man, I wanted to inflict the worst amount of pain on you and anything to just not feel it. Now I'm like, holy cow, man, like what an amazing gift, right? Like I said to someone a while ago, imagine if you're walking, because for me, these pieces I learn, they are the gold nugget on the yellow brick road that's getting me to the thing. Because I got to say this, everything I've been through, the darkness, like some of the worst places I've ever been that I would never want anybody else to have to be in physically and emotionally, I would not trade a single one of those experiences and those moments if you told me that changing any of them would change who I am and where I am right now in this moment. And so I'm so grateful for that. And so let's just call that the yellow brick road. These things that the girls teach me, show me, that I see in myself, man, Jake, this is the gold. Like this is the gold that I have in front of me. And so I said to someone the other day, if you were walking and a piece of gold fell out of your pocket, wouldn't you want me as your friend or even as a stranger to tap you on the shoulder and say, oh, Jake, I think you dropped something there? Because if not, someone else is going to scurry away with it. But I want to see the gold nuggets that I'm dropping. And then when I pick it up, there's a process to picking it up. There's a process to owning it, to refining it, to make it be that next gold nugget that's going to fit and fill that part on the yellow brick road. And so, I mean, I was great. And, I'm still a work in progress. So I'm easier, happier, more fluid when I'm getting the good stuff, when I'm getting all the accolades and the pats on the back and the way to go. That's easy. That used to be hard too. So that's growth. Like the fact that I'm able to take it in, but that's still easier than when someone says, bro, you, whatever, you let me down, or I'm pissed off, or you didn't do that. Like, there's a part of me that wants to go into the defensive and the yeah buts and the trying to like hide and sneak around or get behind it. But both of them are gold nuggets. They're both equally profound if I choose to see them that way. That's where I am and where I continue to grow into now.
Yeah, that's so powerful, so beautiful that you can look back on the darkness that you've experienced and have such a level of gratitude for it all, knowing that without that, again, maybe you're not here on this podcast here today. One decision in the past or one choice to go and face yourself in the midst of your storm, right? Going the other direction and not facing it could again lead, who knows where that road would have led. That was an option. And I'm grateful for you and your willingness to choose the other option. And I know that in the healing journey, the more you heal, the more you work on yourself, new pathways are presented before you. And every time those triggers come up, the old patterns are going to claw and pull and scratch and do everything they can to get you to revert, to go backwards. So it's, again, and I know that's where I'm at in my life. So grateful for all of the trials, all of the negative, the hard times, because I know that was all strengthening me, right, in those moments, and then only strengthening me for the future events that I would experience, that I would need to rely on the strength that was built through those situations.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, and for me, it's learning how to still honor myself, even in the moments when seemingly no one else is honoring me. Like that's, and continues to be like, that is the growth mountain that I'm climbing now, is like owning. And I do this. I journal every day, every morning I get up. And one of the things I've started writing there just probably in the last month is to love my own self unconditionally. Like it has to start with me. And that doesn't mean that I don't have work to do or that I don't need to make an amends, or, I'm doing great stuff and with myself and in the world. But it's like, dude, acknowledge, because there's a part of me I can look at myself, be like, oh, I look fat in that thing, or I don't like the way, like whatever it is, right? Or I don't have enough of this, or like I should be someone, like whatever it is. And yeah, and just being mindful of how quick I can judge myself. And so my practice now, one of my core practices, is to remind myself to love myself unconditionally every single day.
So powerful and so necessary on the path for everyone, a healing path or a non-healing path. We all need that love, and the more we give it to ourselves, the more receptive we can be from the love that's coming from outside of us, because it's there and it's always been there. But because we've been so closed off from our own love, we haven't been able to see it, and therefore we haven't been able to receive it. And then we complain. And right, that, oh, nobody loves me, nobody likes me. Oh no, there's plenty of people to do, but it starts from you.
Yeah. And then after the complaint, then I would go into victim mode. Right. And that's like trying to climb up the hill with a pair of slippery running shoes in a rainstorm. Good luck, man. There's no winning that battle at all. So now I don't wear those shoes anymore, and I don't go on those slippery hills.
There you go. That's the key. That's the key to life. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
All righty. Well, heck, it's been a lot. I want to go a little bit longer here. Don't want to keep you too much longer. So NTC, what is it exactly? And where is the business now? How are you feeling in regards to the comparison to year 1, year 10, year 20 to now year 26?
Yeah, well, my growth, we're talking about a relationship, and I have a relationship with my business. And so founded in 1998, We're based, our bricks and mortar is here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We were the first on the block. I mean, that formally walked in with, like I said, with bricks and mortar. And we started training hockey players when it wasn't a thing. I mean, most players thought that training was like on the ice, do the game situations, shoot 1,000 pucks, and then maybe 2,000 pucks is better. And kids were going on the ice 7, 8 hours a day, all summer long for weeks and weeks. And so I just started thinking like there has to be a different way. And I knew how amazing I'd finished school. So from recognizing physiology and anatomy, I thought, wow, like anatomically, there's a lot more we could do in building foundations. So I just started with one athlete and then it grew. And so for the most part, I was a one-man show for maybe close to 2 decades or, at least a decade and a half. And then recently, in the last 5, 6, 7 years, I began extricating myself. And this goes back to the work that I did. I'm now able to detach and let go. And much like being in a healthy relationship, being a healthy partner where I'm not checking up on every single thing that my partner's doing, let them go and live their life and have fun. And so, we built an incredible team, both on the front lines, front facing and behind the scenes. And we're super stoked about where we're going. We've got some incredibly lofty goals in the next 12 to 18 months that we're all working towards collectively. And so for me now my role in the business as a CEO is to lead with, dynamically, but lead with confidence and faith and trust in our brand and faith and trust in the people that are doing the work. And and every, so 26 years in May of this year, we had our best month ever in 26 years, which is incredibly exciting. And so, we're doing a lot of things really well. We're growing, we're learning. I take, Gary Vee, I love what he says. Whenever things don't go right in his business, it falls on him. And so I take that approach is that, unless someone on our team is doing something maliciously, but I believe everybody shows up with care and candor and willingness to help. And so it's my job to support them and support our team so that we, everybody can thrive. And I want to help all of our staff reach their goals and dreams, whether that be inside the walls of NTC or outside. And so now that's my role. And so, we train hockey players. We have a skating treadmill. We were the first ones in Canada to bring one in 2005. We've got over 200,000 miles. I mean, we are literally the mecca of teaching kids how to skate properly on a skating treadmill. And so grateful that I jumped into that market when I did, and we've become the leader. And then working in the dryland space, right? Teaching proper mechanics in terms of function. And, in 1998, nobody was training. So I was constantly educating, teaching, sharing ideas, provoking thought in the parent of like, well, PK Subban, maybe skating 9 hours a day isn't the only solution or a solution. Let's do 5.5 hours. Maybe let's go train with Dan for an hour or two. And so that was the early on. Now we're fighting a whole different battle. Now we've got, everybody on Instagram and TikTok doing these incredibly advanced moves. Kids don't even know how to do a free body squat. They've got no mobility through their upper back and their thoracic spine. And they're doing like single leg bounding off a 30-inch box. And I'm like, okay, guys, let's pull it back a little here. Like, so now I'm from a different perspective. I feel like I'm back in the education seat, teaching and leading the right path so that players can, do the right thing and obviously improve the best that they can. And so now, we spend a lot of time with cognitive space and working on eyes and brain speed and really supporting athletes to be their best. And, much like you do, the mindset, right? How they're thinking about themselves, how they see themselves in relationship to the game, to a team, drives me crazy. I said to the players this morning, the expression is like, you play for the name on the front of the sweater, not on the back of the sweater. And I think that's the biggest line of bullshit that we've told our kids is like, yeah, there's a time when it's all about Team Newton. And I'm there, bro. I will fight that other guy to the death to support our initiative. But there's a time when it's Team Blackburn and I'm over here in the dark. And I hope to God that Newton is over there in his dark doing his thing. And I need to be refining me, looking at me, growing, becoming better. And there's going to come a time when maybe Blackburn and Newton it's best for them to go their separate ways and play at a different level on a different team, whatever. But this whole notion of like, we're family forever and kumbaya. And I stopped calling our groups as family because I know a lot of people that come from super toxic, unsafe families. And so we're a team. We're Team NTC. We're working together. And I want you to spend as much time on you. And we're going to put you in the spotlight as much as we can as we do the group or the team. And so spend a lot of time with the athletes on that. And for some of them, it's like, it takes a while to like deprogram. Like they feel like they're being, that they're underserving or that they're being selfish with their team. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with being selfish sometimes, man. Like when I say no to that, like, you asked me to do the podcast at 4:00 on Saturday. That didn't work for me. The most selfish thing I would have done would be to do it anyways and resent the fact that I wasn't doing the other thing I wanted to do that I was going to enjoy. And so it's finding that ebb and flow where players can stand on their own and appreciate that they themselves, as a Blackburn or a Newton or a Smith or a Jones, that their individual entity is super important. And sometimes that means it's more important than the team.
Yeah, so powerful, because we grew up in the game and everybody always said, this is family. But as you just stated and brought up there's a lot of dysfunction with families, so that again doesn't necessarily create that space or that escape for the kid that comes from the troubled family that we know nothing about, and then I like also what you said, that these are going to be family forever, friends forever. And so through that, and I've been posting more about it recently, is we get lost then in teammate pleasing. This guy's going to be my teammate forever. He's going to be my friend forever. I want him to be happy. So I'm going to betray myself, overstep my own boundaries and say yes, 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 yes. And I've lost sight of the power of saying no and serving myself, So I think I love that you brought that up, because I know there will obviously be hockey people that listen to this too. And it's so important for kids to understand that truth, right? It's a truth. You're not going to be your teammates forever. They're sure as hell not going to be your friends forever. I consider the year I moved away from home, my first year to play juniors, was essentially my first year of pro. So from the ages of 15 to 32, I was away from home and I played with hundreds of teammates. There are literally 3 guys that I keep in contact with. 3. But the amount of guys that I was lost in pleasing and saying yes to the nights out, to the partying, opposed to saying yes to my wife and just going home, cuddling, watching a movie and going to bed so I can be better prepared for Monday. But I never did that. I always pleased them because I was lost in myself,
100%. Yeah, dude. When we train our athletes, we are constantly, and I say to there are guys all the time, like, look, there's a lot of great training programs here in the GTA, I mean, across the globe, but here specifically in the GTA, there's a lot of great ones. What I believe NTC does differently is we build from a mountain. We build from a place that nobody can touch us, because it's this uniqueness. It's about empowering every single player when they come in. It's about empowering them to be the best version of them. And does that mean being physically stronger? Maybe, but in most cases, it means there's a part of them emotionally, mentally, that's out of sync or not even in play, that's affecting them more than how quick they shoot the puck or how much they read the play or hockey IQ, whatever it is that a scout would analyze as a good or a bad trait in a player. And so, and that's the piece, right? Is like giving the players the freedom to share that component, that part of like, well, yeah, maybe if I did that, I'd feel a little bit better about myself. And if I felt better about myself, maybe whatever it was, to connect the dots. And Brent Burns, so he's a couple of years older than you, but he was probably in San Jose, or maybe he was still in Minnesota when you were in Anaheim. But he was in the summer, and him and I were chatting, and a couple of the younger guys heard him. And he said, I wish parents and players knew that there's no such thing as the way. Like every single player, he goes, I play against Steven Stamkos, and I play against Connor McDavid, and I play against Nathan McKinnon. Like, they're all different. They all got to where they are doing different things from a different place, even a different country, a different province. And so he said, but the one thing that was constant was, what am I doing week over week, month over month, year over year, that's investing in me so that I can be the best version of me? Like, that is the one constant, because every single one of those guys, they've got a ritual. Nate McKinnon, he plays a game and he's on a bike for 20 minutes. Whether there's a physiological benefit, because I could talk to you scientifically of both the pros and the cons to doing that, but it doesn't matter, because for him, he has an emotional attachment and connection to that that helps him, that carries it over. From there, it's into the cold tub. It's a very systematic process because that has worked for him and each one of these guys. But that's what's consistent. And so I say to players, you have the system. It's all the stuff you can't control, which is 90+% of what we experience in life. The thing that I can control is my process. And when I'm locked solid on my process, ways you talked about before, pathways start to appear. And when I'm true to my process, the clarity of which lane to take is infinitely clear. There's no ambiguity. There's no fog. There's no haze. Friends, see you later. Like, I know because I'm so intuitively connected to me and to my process. And so, yeah, it was great listening to Brent share that because like he said, he goes, guys, get a process that works for you, rock it, crush it, stay true to it, analyze it, be aware of it, and don't get caught up in all the minutia, the 90+% of the stuff that you'll never be able to control. Because as we see, even Steven Stamkos, one of the greatest players of all time, for some reason, Brisbane and Tampa were like, no, we're done with you. Bro, 16 years, we raised my kids, we sat like, what? We have nothing for you. And it's not a financial thing. So, and that's okay, right? Because I don't plan to be here forever. I don't plan to do the exact same thing for the rest of my life, but my process is going to be the bridge that's going to get me to the next thing, whatever that happens to be. And then to your point, gives me roads and arteries and tentacles to choose on that I can then follow.
Yeah, and I think so many kids, especially in today's society with all of the social media out there, they're so focused on other people and they continuously put other players, other people on these pedestals. They instantly give them respect. They instantly get lost in thinking about their skills, how good they are as skaters, as shooters, as stick handlers in their one-on-one battles. And they're sending signals unconsciously to themselves that they're not that person, that they're not that good, that they don't have those skills, you know? And so it's just super important that for any listeners out there, if you're going to be tuning into this social media, let's make sure it's stuff that's helping you to feel better about yourself or inspiring you, empowering you to stay more consistent with your process.
The three words that I get a reaction from the most in the last 2 years is toe, drag, release. Right? Because number one, players have been doing it forever. Connor Bedard, I mean, the phenomenal player, and his shot as a 16-year-old was incredible, right? So, and that's what he coined it, right? Okay, great. But when a 6-year-old comes into our facility and they're working with one of our coaches, and all they want to work on is toe drag release, and they're trying to go bar down, and the puck is like fluttering end over end, is like to deprogram them to say, okay, I get it. We'll get there, or wear your Bedard shirt, or he's a great, like whatever. But that's not you. You're 6. Let's work on just shooting the puck accurately and hard so you can score a few times and then we'll build, right? And so I think, I just share that because to your point, that's what happens, right? These players and families want to emulate these pros, and every pro will tell you, because I've been working with them for a long time, even your most seasoned pro, we've had Connor McDavid and Sid and McKinnon. Like, they've all been through our facility at some level. And they'll all tell you that, dude, I have so many holes in my game. Like, I am literally trying to like duct tape these gaps together. And so if that's true for them and they're the most revered, most coveted, sort of highest skilled players in the world, then it's obviously going to apply to every other player on the planet as well.
Yeah, and I think, again, these kids, they see the highlight reel that is social media, and they want to instantly be able to do that high level at full speed skill. And so instead of having to do all of the work to build the base to get yourself there, they just want to go straight there. And then because they go straight to the highest level, they're not adequate enough yet. They don't have those abilities yet. Then it leads them into just feeling poorly about themselves. And so they're mentally trapping themselves. So it's about, okay, I see that. I'm going to view that as proof of what's possible for me, but I need to understand that there is a process to getting there. And I need to go start at step 1. Master that, then step 2, and so on and so forth. And then eventually you can get that. But Connor McDavid hasn't been this type of skater for his whole entire career. There was a lot of hours that he had to put into his skating that nobody has seen, will ever see. And we're losing sight of that. And we're just looking at it from the tip. And I know you do as well some speaking or you certainly have. I know you were obviously doing it as a part of the showcase that you invited me out to a year ago there. How has that been? This can be the last question here. How has that been? And do you see yourself continuing in that space?
Yeah, I've been, back to what I said before about boundaries. So I'm certainly still doing it. It's now a part of my overall, I guess you could call it role or how I spend my day and how I choose to allocate my time. So I'm more selective with where I speak and what that looks like. There was a time when I would speak for free and drive all over and on my own dime and go just to be in front of, and which was fine, right? At the time, I probably needed that to get seasoned. Now I can proudly say, I've done a TED Talk. I've spoken on most of the sort of largest stages out there across the world. And so, yeah, so now I'm selective, whether it be corporate or working with junior teams. I have a set allocation of time that I'm available, and and I love it. I love sharing, the processes, and I have a whole host of different lessons and keynotes that I deliver. But yeah, it's a blast to do it, and I'm also adding it into like one of the things, not the thing.
Got it. Love that. For anybody that's listening that loved hearing you speak, the zest, the passion, the fire, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, all the main socials. So Dan W. Blackburn on Instagram and Facebook, and then NTC Hockey on all the platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, the regular shtick, if you will. Yeah, there's probably a few other platforms, and then old school, old fashioned websites, right? Those are still a thing. So ntchockey.com, go and check us out. And yeah, if you have any questions, our team is super. We make ourselves super available. If it's not me, it's someone on our team responding. So if you have any questions, yeah, jump into the DMs or throw comments in on our post, and we'll gladly jump in and offer whatever support we can.
Boom. Love that. Any last bit of advice or sharing, anything you want to throw in there?
No, I think when we did the showcase, remember, I said to everybody at the head table, like, what's one word, if you could have one word to describe, to share with players. And to me, the ultimate word for me is awareness. And I believe that we are incredibly aware as humans, as kids. Our intuition is rock solid. We know when we can see through the veneer. We know the good ones and the bad ones. And as we get older, that's pushed out of us, right? We're told to not listen to our gut, to not be silly, to suck it up, to just go and grind. And don't worry, this will be a little painful, but it's going to pave the road. You got to do the hard to get to the good, and we get all that stuff. But to me, not when it's overriding my intuition. And so I say to players and parents and coaches all the time, and to corporate, I say, trust your intuition, like go back to your intuition. And that for me is awareness. Like I know when I'm being inefficient with my time. I know when I'm not leading in a dynamic way that's supporting. Like I know when I'm locked in my old stories and my pander and my victim. I know. And so in those moments, I'm able to course correct. And I believe that's unilaterally to everybody on this planet, that if your awareness is sky high, you'll be attentive and you'll be able to course correct if and when you need to, or make choices that might be difficult, but are the right choice as long as you listen to the intuition and the awareness. Because when I do, it doesn't necessarily make the journey easier in the moment, but it's the right thing to do. And the right thing is always the right thing.
Love that. Well, thank you so much, brother, for your time here today, your energy, everything that you had to share. I mean, you're just a powerhouse of a human. I love you with all my heart, brother. So grateful to know you, to have you in my life. And I look forward to the next time we can. Oh, heck, maybe that's going to be soon. I keep forgetting to look at Nash's schedule.
Yeah. Let's do that.
But yeah, I'll get to that. And again, guys, just to end it here, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, follow. Thank you for your time and listening to this powerful podcast here today, as we know that we went in a few different pathways, right? Those pathways were clear and we jumped. So again, thank you to everybody at SportsE Media for this platform. Thank you for Chris in the background here today, making sure that all the sounds, the echoes, everything is just primed up and ready for us here today. But that's going to be it, guys. Stay tuned. This episode number 3, well, it's obviously available now because you're hearing it. So I'm going to leave that out. Anyhow, we will see you guys next time.
This is a SportsE Media production, part of Quiet Loud Studios, the podcast network where reflection meets amplification.